Yes, g'day, Shelter FootyCast live from BackChat Studios. I'm not hungover, that is the Southern River Band. There's no drinking for me on the weekend, Skeeter. I'm sprightly, I'm up and about, just like you've been for the last couple of weeks. How are you, Skeet?
Good, day 24 for me, I'm almost halfway there.
Wow.
It's
I'm going 90.
No, I'm doing 50, don't get ahead of yourself. I'm just getting through to 50. Raise the bat at 50. And then go and drain a couple. But no, I actually feel quite fresh, and it's so nice to see you coherent and just your eyes. I can see the pupils of your eyes.
I was unwell on Thursday, but I'm well today, Skeeter. It's been a good weekend of footy. Gather around over, obviously, in South Australia, so we're going to get through that, go through each game, talk about how shit Skeeter is at tipping, and maybe a few other stories from the weekend.
I went well.
Not that well.
Mate, 8 out of 9 for me, brother.
Not on this show, mate. Maybe in the newspaper, but on this show you were tipping roughies, remember? So
No.
Okay, we'll go through that. I think there's going to be some challenges from what I've heard. Socials, Shelter FootyCast on Instagram. Give us a follow. Send in your emails. We've got a couple of emails to get through at the end of the show. Skeeter, footycast@shelterbrewing.com.au. Watch us on YouTube. Listen to us as a podcast. All well over the weekend for you, Skeet? You're all sorted. I mean, you're obviously living a happy lifestyle.
You alluded to the fact that you thought I should have been commentating on radio with you, and I ended up being the Waffle. And then
I actually forgot about that. That was a very enjoyable 6 hours of radio I had on Saturday. I spent the entire... Look, so talk about covering games. Skate, you've been doing it for a lot longer than I have, but we covered the Melbourne-Essendon game from the studio in 6PR for 6 hours. So we did a 2-hour preview, then we did like a 3-hour game, and then we did a 1-hour review. And like, it was good, and it's I'm obviously paid by 6PR.
But when you're talking about the game prior to or after, longer than the actual match itself, that's a long journey.
So we started. Skeet was on the roster. There was some confusion about who was meant to be where, and I was texting Skeet anyway. Found out Skeet wasn't coming in, so I spent the majority of that 6 hours just yelling Skeeter's name into the microphone. Skeeter. We found Skeet. Where's Skeet? And by the last hour, I had lost my mind.
You sounded delirious.
Yeah, I was, mate. So, I wasn't referring to that. You go all right in the punt on the weekend? Or?
I only had one frustrating moment, to be honest. And I lost, but I didn't lose big. But I tell you what, I was sitting there watching the end of the Port Adelaide Western Bulldogs game, and I had Port to win at the line, minus 14.5. They led by 15 points. They get the ball inside their forward lines. Pal Pepper has a snap, goes across the face of goal. There's another shot which doesn't quite score. Because I'm thinking...
So you need a score or you don't need a score?
No, I need them to win by 15 or more. They lead by 15 with about a minute to go. It's raining, all sorts of wind and hail and God knows what.
Is it at the opposite end of the ground? So
it's in Port's forward line.
So it's fine.
But I wanted one more point because you get to 16, then they've got to score a goal in the last minute. So as it stands, they goes to the wing. Bulldogs rush it forward. Arthur Jones gets a free kick over the shoulder, 50 out.
Big fan of Arthur Jones.
Yeah, no, I'm not a huge fan because he gets the ball and he kicks it to the top of the square. 2 seconds, 1 second, off hands, trickles over the goal line. They win by 14. With the siren going as it crosses a line. I tried not to swear because my wife would have heard me, but I thought, you seriously? And I was filthy.
Were you angry at the Port Adelaide defenders?
I was angry at life because I was angry at everything. I was angry at the fact that how could I get stitched up? I looked upstairs and I said, mate, how have you done me on this? Seriously. I had a chat to the big fella upstairs. I said, this is disgusting. Yes. I went to my Catholic faith.
Oh, very good, Skeeter. Well, there you go. Mark Reddings, he's found another way to sort his life out. He's having a break from drinking. Anyway, that's very good. You said it was a good story, and it was. Yeah, out of interest, the line in the Geelong West Coast game, not that this is a punting podcast, but I just did have a look at it because I wondered if it was going to be 100 points.
I thought
I'll tell you what it was.
58?
It was 48.
Oh, 48.
How much did they win by?
47.
That's correct. Do with what you will with that stat and my punting. Big moment of the round. Gather around. Let's start on a positive. Whether it was the AFL or Fox Footy or everyone involved, hyping it up, it just looked like somewhere you wanted to be.
Yeah, and fun. Shelter, South Australia, you and I, you have to give it consideration.
That's the next state across, isn't it, from Western Australia? So
although Gil made it sound a bit closer than what it was. He said, it's pretty central. Victorians can get across easily. Western Australians, it's still a 3-hour plane trip.
Correct.
So it's not that close for us. But the concept, which of course started with the NRL, which before that started with Super League in rugby league in the UK, has found its way into the AFL. And I think a success story, I haven't seen, I've been to Norwood and haven't been to Mount Barker over there, but the grounds look really well put together and the crowds were terrific. I don't think you could have asked for a better result.
Adelaide's a great town. It's a great town for it. The Adelaide Oval, where 6 of the games were, it's right in the city. It is
walking
distance. Whereas, Optus Stadium, I guess East Perth is walkable. Like it's sort of walkable, but like Adelaide City is like the core of Adelaide. Right?
And the positive is that you can get from A to B simply in Adelaide. The negative is it is very small. So, but no, I think it's a huge result for the AFL. Going for 3 years, confirming it for 3 years.
2026 it'll be there.
I just think, well, it does shut out the other options, down the track with, New South Wales is an obvious possibility, Queensland as well, and obviously Western Australia. We're a footy heartland. So what does the AFL want to do? Are they trying to sell the game to their own constituents, or do they want to expand the game to include the northern states?
I don't mind it. It sounds like you're a little bit of, shouldn't lock it away. I don't mind locking it away because you're right. You can look at it as an expansion tool and promoting the game, or you can look at it, what I probably look at it, it's like a celebration of how good's this, and you want everyone to come there. And I know like putting it in the Gold Coast would be great. I just don't know if you sell all the grounds out.
It's going to be a totally different experience because
it's almost like a showcase. Whereas this is like, how good's this? Get here. If you love footy, you need to get to Adelaide.
Well, that's why the NRL does it in Queensland, Brisbane, because people, A, it's a great place to visit, and B, you're going to have rugby league diehards. Even if you don't barrack for the Broncos or the Dolphins or the Gold Coast Titans or North Queensland, you're going to go there and enjoy because you love rugby league. One place I don't think they should have it, Magic Round, is Melbourne. Is that a fair?
All the things that I love it. They get Magic Round every week in Melbourne. Is that what it is?
Well, no, just see what's the point of having Magic Round in Victoria?
Yeah, well, there's not much. I mean, there's not much other than if you just make it a thing where everyone's in the same spot.
Mate, you got grand final, you got Anzac Day, you got Dreamtime.
Yeah, but none of those have every team playing. Like I wouldn't be opposed to putting it in Melbourne. I'll put it that way.
So, got blokes like Damien Barrett coming out saying they should move the showdown from the Adelaide Oval to the MCG.
Ridiculous.
This is just, what are these Victorians thinking? They are on Mars. Seriously, what are you blokes? What is it? Is it a God-given right that you should have every major event that lands on the AFL calendar?
Yeah.
And they get shitty because Collingwood St Kilda's not played at the MCG.
I mean, generally that's how Victorians operate. Yeah, we
Me.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, everything should come to us, absolutely. As opposed to West Australians, it's like...
Oh, no, don't worry, we're...
you're not a West Australian, are you?
Well, yeah, of course. I've been here for 45, 50 years. Does that constitute being a West Australian? Pretty close. If Adam Gilchrist is a West Australian...
Oh, he's not a West Australian either.
What is he?
Oh, where he was born.
Well, he's from New South Wales.
Yeah, well, he's a New South Welshman.
So do you have to be born here?
I would think so.
So I'm a Canadian then, right? I was born in Canada.
Yeah,
so I'm Wayne Gretzky territory, Pamela Anderson, Celine Dion.
Do you know them personally?
Well,
do you know them personally?
Oh, I don't want to go into my contact book, but no, I don't actually.
It's been a good start to the show here. Well, I liked it, and I think you did too.
Yeah, of course.
Gather around. Very good. Let's get into a couple of more serious issues. I want to start with the Waffle West Coast defeated by 169 points, 217 to 48 by West Perth on the weekend. Very clear what the reasons are in my mind. I mean, they've got injuries, and so when 10 players come out at the West Coast AFL side, 10 players come up from the Waffle side, and then it's a big shuffle. So they lose their 10 best, and they need to add 10 more players, and the quality of the list drops off significantly because there's not depth there, right? So that's the reason they've lost by so much. How do you see their position in the Waffle competition right now?
Yeah, well, just going away from just the weekend's result, I think they've won one of their past 24, 25 games. And in that period, we talk about last year where the injuries were just as bad, if not worse. So that's not going to help the cause. Look, it's a balancing act because I don't think anyone who follows the Waffle wants the Eagles to be too strong. But conversely, they don't want them to be belted like they have at the moment. So as soon as they get too strong, West Coast, you're going to have Waffle clubs, their rivals, bleating about the strength of the Eagles. As it stands now, it just looks bad having a loss like that. And you think of on the weekend, Elijah Hewitt was injured early. Harry Barnett, I think, made his debut. Zane True, Rhett Bazzo, Bergil, some of these guys that are AFL listed. But that's it. That's it.
Yep, I'm gonna give you a big long spiel here, Skater. So, look, I think as it stands, West Coast has to seriously consider whether this model is the right model going forward, and whether that's not going to happen next week. Whether they change that, they're going to most likely have to stay the course with where they are right now, and they're going to be a terrible side for as long as they have injuries in the top level. So, you can't fix anything this year, but I think. Look, I'm actually well placed to speak about this. I've seen every model there is, right? So when I got over here, I was drafted to Peel through an interstate draftee program. So we were sort of billeted out to clubs. I was the only West Coast player at Peel.
Where did you live?
I lived in Leederville. Down
so you drove 2 times a week to training?
Yep. So I drove Thursdays. We didn't have to go down there for the Monday review. We did a phone call for that, but I drove down there Thursday training. I didn't have to do that either, but I did that. And this will go to my point a little bit later because I thought it was the right thing to do. I wasn't playing AFL footy to start the year, so to rock up and play a game and leave, I don't think that's the way to do it. And I was 17 at the time, right? So I did that for 4 years. I then the East Perth alignment system came in at the same time as the Peel Thunder one did. So I played games at East Perth under the alignment model, and quite a few games, probably 20 games with East Perth.
Enjoy that more?
Very different, but I liked them both. I'll come back on what I liked and what I didn't like. West Coast then had the Waffle side, and I played with the West Coast Waffle side alignment team. So I've done them all. The best for development was personally playing at Peel. Playing with men. We didn't win a lot of games during that period, but I was playing with grown men. I've never done that before. Because I took the time to go and train on Thursdays, they really embraced me. I was like a recruit for them, so they treated me really well. I got played where I wanted to play because they weren't the best side. Muddy Waterman was the coach at the time, and my development was great, not only just as a footballer, but as a person, as a man. I learnt how to be in a footy club. Then moving to East Perth, that was the most successful alignment for West Coast and for the development. And there was some teething issues with, okay, you've got a young player that West Coast want to play on a half-forward flank, and East Perth say, well, we've got 2 local boys that are very good half-forward flankers. We want to play him, I don't know, on the wing or on the bench or in the reserves. And so they would bump heads over that. But overall, West Coast had assistant coaches down there every training session. They were trying to get East Perth to play like West Coast, and they played in 2 grand finals, East Perth. So, I think that model was extremely good. And you look at the Peel Thunder model, but Fremantle, they've won grand finals, they've won premierships down there with that.
There was resentment with both Peel and with East Perth, with the alignment and how strong they were. So that's from a different perspective.
No,
actually.
That's good. And then we've moved now to the West Coast Waffle side, which was, put in place before COVID, with the thoughts that, okay, they won't have the, kickback from the Waffle and Waffle sides because it's their own team. They'll be able to, directly impact game plan and implement that, and they'll be able to control development of their players because it won't be external. So that comes in, COVID happens, and the West Coast Waffle side sort of does what it's done over the last few years. You say 1-2 games in 24 games or whatever it is. COVID harmed it with the footy cap cut because they couldn't put the right resources in. I think if you're going to have your standalone Waffle side, you have to put serious resources into it. And
the resources you're talking about, do you think, and you played at Peel, I'm not asking you to tell me the numbers, but do you think the resources that the Eagles need at Waffle level are above and beyond what other Waffle clubs
Absolutely.
require?
They're starting their own club, right?
But the club's been around for 2 or 3 seasons now.
I know, but they've started their own football club effectively, right? It's their own side.
Yep.
You can't just click your fingers and think that a team's going to, there's so much that goes on behind the scenes at footy clubs that aren't just the players. You got the coaches and the coaching staff. You've got the medical staff.
Admin, all that.
You got guys running water. You got admin. You've got, footy managers. You've got so much stuff that isn't the players that, one, I don't think West Coast has been able to put the right funds behind it, and 2, they haven't. And so it's now just an ad hoc mismatch, bunch of guys running around trying their best. It's not on the players. It's probably not even on the club, but the situation right now, West Coast aren't getting development out of their young players. That's the biggest issue. I know the Waffle competition, making sure that it's not getting affected by West Coast getting smashed every week. But the biggest thing is West Coast want that side to develop their players to play in the AFL, not to win the Waffle competition. I don't think they're entering to do that. And they're not getting that whatsoever. You spoke about those guys off the top. They're coming into that team and they're playing with amateurs. They're playing with amateur players. And that's, again, no one's fault, but that's a fact. they're not going to get any develop. They literally will not get any development rocking up and getting in a game like that. 217 to 48.
So, after all that you just said, what's the solution? Say if you had the template for 2024, ideally and logistically it might not be possible, what do you think would be the best way forward for this club to develop those players?
The most ideal one is an AFL reserves competition where every side is in the same boat and they've got to fund their own competition. Are we close to that? Look, I think we're closer to that than we were before COVID. I think before COVID, logistically, the AFL and clubs sort of couldn't happen, but they've spent 2 years effectively shipping players around the country and putting them in hubs, and they would now have that process, which I just think when you haven't done it, you think it's bigger than it is. But now that they've done that, I think the logistics side's taken care of.
But that's not going to happen short term.
No, but I think we're not that far away from it. You'd need sponsorship. You'd need to be able to pay for it.
They'll get that,
right? Which they'll get. I think that could happen. I don't see they ran the Foxtel Cup, right? You worked on that, right?
Yep.
Some of your best time in media, right? So if they can run the Foxtel Cup, I'm pretty sure they can run the AFL side. They'd have to bring more players onto lists, and they'd have to have the reserve lists basically. But they had that in COVID, if you remember. Like the Waffle side, that's when all the guys played last year.
Yep.
Blokes like who played out of the Waffle, Dewar from
Aaron Black,
right? So those
guys, Declan Mountford,
they were all on reserve lists, so they would have a similar setup. So they've done it. That's the best one. Look, secondary. I don't know. Do you go back to an alignment club like a Perth?
Well, that's the obvious one. Perth is the obvious one.
Perth kicked 1 goal on the weekend.
Yeah, they've had. Well, don't trust me. I'm a Perth supporter. Haven't won a flag since '77. Haven't looked like it. We made the finals a couple of years ago. That was in a shortened season during COVID. There has been sustained non-success at the footy club. It seems, and this is, I'm a Perth supporter. I don't want to see the Perth Demons become something else. But if you're looking at the most obvious, if you're going down alignment, it's staring everyone right in the face.
When West Coast built their facility at Lathlane in 2017, 2018, I'm sure that
was a plan.
There was a proposal for that to happen, wasn't there?
Well, there's a plan from West Coast point of view, but there's always been, under Bob Shields through Perth and now Barra's president, I think the president or the CEO that ticks off on that, obviously through the board and through the members, to align with the Eagles, a bit like James Brayshaw at North Melbourne. He didn't want to be the one to ship them up to the Gold Coast. So I understand the reluctance to do it, but
I've got no alignment to the Perth Footy Club, so I'm happy to say it. When was the last time you won a grand final or won finals?
Yeah, but the same thing could be asked of St Kilda. They won 1966
Correct.
was their last. But I don't think that has to be the premise of why you go the alignment path. But in terms of the West Coast, that would be just ideal for them to have Perth as their club, as they did with East Perth. They're in the same facility. All that adds up. It's Perth that has always been the stumbling block for the reasons you've mentioned, the history and losing the identity, which they believe is important.
I can just imagine the board of directors or whoever makes those decisions sitting around in some dimly lit, dusty room going, well, we're not going to lose our culture and our tradition and blah, blah, blah. My point of view would be you got to move with the times. I don't have any alignment with Perth, and I'm sorry if I'm offending anyone, but you got to move with it, don't you?
Well, you say that.
The opportunity's there, and you would have had a lot of money put into that football club from West Coast.
So why then, with East Perth, and a lot of money went into the coffers at East Perth, and they were financially very secure after their alignment with the Eagles, why did they bail?
I don't know.
Well, that's the reason.
They made 2 grand finals.
But we're talking more. I think that you talk about the culture. Now, I don't work at either club, but that's what they're saying. The culture eroded. There are people at East Perth that were pretty dead set on just separating themselves from the Eagles and going down their own path.
So I played at Peel Thunder before, and I've played it with them after my AFL career. And Matt Rose is in place there at Peel, and I know Matty really well. And if I'm speaking out of school, probably, but he one of his top missions at that footy club is to make sure that alignment is great, and that's by, obviously making sure Freo get what they want, but more importantly, looking after his players that are local, making sure that they feel like they're involved in a footy club, making sure that they got the facilities to do the right thing for their team. Maybe that's why East Perth didn't do it. Maybe they didn't have someone looking after the best interests of the East Perth players. East Perth players get disenfranchised and move on. I think Matty Rose is doing a great job. I've seen it. I've been in the East Perth thing as well. I've been in the Peel thing. I don't know. I would think the Peel players are pretty happy with Freo being involved with that footy club.
Yep. If I had the answer and you had the answer, it'd be easily put to bed, but it's not the case, and we know that. Well, put it this way: what's untenable is having a team getting beaten by 170 points.
I'm pretty sure Rep Bazzo played. I'm pretty sure he played it. You know, that someone kicked 10, someone kicked 8, someone kicked 5.
So Tyler Keitel kicks a career best 8. Mitch Dobson kicks.
Who kicked 10?
Tyler Keitel kicked 10. Dobson kicks 8. It's 34 goals. That's just a bloodbath.
Hope their necks are all right in the back line of the West Coast Waffle tonight, watching a few goals go over the back. I think that's a good discussion, though, and we'll continue that going on. I've got another rant to go on about concussions, but we're going to save that for next week because I've been banging on about this a little bit too much. Will Schofield, Mark Reddings, Shelter FootyCast. Let's go into Fremantle first, Skeeter. Fremantle defeat Gold Coast by 10.
I'm sitting on the couch.
Come on.
I'm just sitting back, chewing the steel and just thinking, this is pretty average. Get this beep, beep text.
Beep, beep, you reckon?
Or whatever it does.
Idiot.
And Dan's chiming in and Scully.
What did I say? Something.
Along the lines of, you can say what you
Dockers are shite. Like, I picked Gold Coast, never picking them again.
And you said F them. That's it.
I said fuck them. Fuck them.
And then it's a bit like me when I put the punt on. As soon as you said that, they started to fire a shot.
Freo were getting smashed.
Yeah, they were.
Were they not? I think you replied with something like they looked
cooked. They were 4 goals down, but
Gold Coast should have been more in front.
Yeah.
They missed some goals, and Fremantle weren't. They were playing the same way they've played. So I don't know if someone sent my text message through to the players. I'm sure. Well, the jury's still out of whether or not that happened, but something happened and they turned things around. They started incredibly slow and it packed out Norwood Oval. It looked like a great setup there. But, there was a game of halves, but once what did they do? I just felt like they started winning. I asked Dave Mundy on 6PR, what is it? You can't just click your fingers. And basically he said, look, they started getting it done at the contest in the midfield. Like it starts in the midfield. They got their ball movement going from that. Behind that, they could defend, and then the game turns around. So
as simple as that, but also if it was that simple, they would have done it for 4 weeks.
Yeah, correct. They've only won 3 first terms in their last 20 games.
Well, we talked about this heading into the season. You go back to the 2 big matches at the end of last year. The game against Collingwood, MCG, they were not put to the sword, but they were beaten pretty convincingly in that semi-final. And in the first quarter against the Bulldogs in the elimination final, they were towed up. They were 40-plus points down in the second quarter. So their starts have been ordinary. I actually mentioned that to Justin Longmuir in a function. He said pre-season, he said, we've got to focus on that. They've been terrible starting teams, and that makes it tough.
For 2014, we were a horrible starting side at West Coast. I'm sure there's some stats. We were slow out of blocks, shit house. And I remember 2015, we genuinely we'd have a game plan and we'd train pre-season and we knew what to do. But our sole focus was start well, and we had modes we would go on. We had this thing called what did we call it? We had like a mode that we'd start the game in. So it was sort of like how Collingwood plays now, and it looks like it's just go mode, and they just go take everything on. We would have that in our kit bag. So if we're losing the game, all right, go through the corridor. It was like the corridor play stuff. Yeah. And at West Coast in 2015, we would have the team meeting before the game, and Simo would go, we're starting in corridor mode. And so pretty much get it, handball, play on, take risks. So we would start the first 15 minutes in like this blitz mode. Yeah. And then you'd pull it back. And so, it was almost genius because what's the worst thing that happen? Like you go into that mode and then you turn the ball over and they kick some goals, but it's the start of the game.
And already, if you've had those issues starting, which the Dockers have had, then you've got to try and change things up. So look.
So maybe they need to be more aggressive.
They won the inside 50 count, 48-45.
They're the top 4 in inside 50s in the comp though, but they're the bottom 4 in converting
and scoring. Yeah, so that's an issue. I mean, their disposal efficiency was 77%, which is that's a pretty good return.
Amos was very good.
Amos good. Great to see Michael Walters at the other age spectrum kicking 4. He's got 10 from 4 games, and I quite like the smaller forward line of Fremantle, to be honest.
Schultz.
Now whether that's as a result of winning footy at the source and then going from there, I don't know. I just think they've got a few more tricks up their sleeves when they even just have the one, whether it's Jackson or whether they just have the one key forward down there, and then
Amos is almost.
Amos
I know he's tall, but he's not he's not a
not
huge key forward.
No, he's not in the Lynch or in that sort of Kennedy style. But But just keep getting games into him.
What did Switkowski do? Did he do a hammy?
Yeah, subbed off. I think it was soft tissue, but unfortunately, Switter's had a bit of habit, hasn't he? Yeah.
Yeah. So Walters kicks 4. He was very good. Schultz.
Sarong outstanding, 37 touches, probably best on. Look,
he's had a great start to the year.
When you think of it, Glendenning, Allen Medal, best on. He's probably leading the Doig medal at the moment, I would suggest.
He'd be right up there in the competition because, I don't think I know Freo haven't started well, but Brayshaw certainly hasn't been the player he was last year. I mean, he's an interesting one. He wins the MVP last year. He comes into this season like the Freo side with a lot of expectation. He started slowly. He's still playing well. He's getting his clearance work going. I think he was strong in that second half, but I almost think that's a positive thing that their best player, Andrew Brayshaw, hasn't been playing at his very best.
But is that purely,
I thought he'd be getting more attention.
Exactly. The MVP next to his name. You can't know. The Geelong, the clubs of early part of the year, and they're coming good, but clubs put work into you. If you have success, you're not just going to be allowed to stroll through unfettered.
Did you pick Freo? You did.
I did pick Freo.
So
and you said you'd never pick Gold. I never pick Freo again until they prove you wrong.
And so they've got Western Bulldogs Friday night. I'll tell you what. I may
be back.
I may pick the Bulldogs. I wasn't that impressed with that victory by Freo. I wasn't. Were you?
No, but you don't have to be. Sometimes it's an away win, or that win, which just scraps you away. And just playing the Bulldogs are coming off a heavy game. We'll discuss it Thursday, but I think that's a real 50-50 game.
Geelong defeat West Coast by 47 points. I was watching this game first half. What did I say?
They kicked 14 goals, which is a record score for Geelong against the Eagles in the first half. Going back to 2008 at Subiaco Oval. You may have been playing in that game, were you, or not?
I was.
Yeah, that's the game that they won by 135 points, and Bomber Thompson was in the coach's box and looked down, and there he was, having a chicken salad roll as the match was ongoing, by the way.
You're not allowed to eat? Is that? I remember this absolute stink in the media about it. You're not allowed to have. He was hungry.
I've never seen a coach eat a meal during the course of a game.
Have you ever eaten anything when you commentate, when you work?
Well, I'm always trying to stick 3 or 4 party pies in there at a time, but I'm not coaching an AFL side.
Well, because you can't talk at a quarter time. He's talking to the players. So when he's up
okay, you tell me another case you've seen someone, apart from lollies, devouring a sausage.
Ross Lyon's been carrying around
these CCs.
Is that a thing?
He must be getting sponsored. Must be getting something on the sly there.
That's very funny.
Ross is, he's a different cat, but we'll get to him. Geelong
defeat West Coast,
64 points half time.
Honestly, I thought it was going to be 200 points. I thought it was going to be like a 350 point loss across both sides.
Yeah.
It was looking horrid.
Ugly.
They started well, West Coast. First quarter, they were up, maybe?
Kicked the first 2 goals behind you.
Oh, no, sorry, they went up.
Oscar Allen,
that's right.
Jake Waterman. But, I mean, just as the Eagles sort of... To be fair, the energy of Geelong was it'd be hard to rock up to a game where you're $1.05 favourites. You just have to turn up to immediately go into that green mode of right. Let's go full bore at this side. So look, it took them a while to get going. I think they kicked 10 or 11 goals in a row after that, Geelong. So it was a pretty decent return from them. 64 points at half time. Didn't look good for the Eagles. Some question mark. Hawkins 4 in the end. Cameron 4.
Close 4.
Tommy Barras is copping a little bit of criticism still about how he's tracking. He took a really nice mark late. I don't know. You tell me. This is your one. What about
who's criticising you?
Oh, a bit on social media. That more so about is he in form? Is he out of form? Is he a bit like Alex Pearce? We're just not quite happening for him.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Like I saw some criticism on social media as well. One in particular, which I won't actually mention who that was. But look, I always find it difficult to criticise players specifically, like their form or.
But if they're in a form or out of form, does he look out of confidence or not playing as?
My thoughts are when you play in the back line, it's a connection piece. Like it's a, the confidence isn't whether I'm a good player or not, or. You're so reliant on who you're playing on and who you're coming up against and the forward line that you're playing against. You do so much prep on the opposition that when you get out there, the people that are around you on your team, your backline, it's a team within a team. So if you don't have the same people or they're in and out or you don't have the same voices that are always there, it does knock your confidence around. So, on the weekend, no Hearn, no McGovern.
No Shuey.
And no Shuey. They're 4 senior guys. So, it certainly would change the way you're seeing the game and may knock around, how you're actually playing. But I certainly can't be too critical given who's out in the park and the delivery that's coming into that forward line. Like, I don't know what else you meant to do, really.
Yeah, I mean, inside 50s, I think 63 to 48 or 50. So anything over 60, you're going to win most games of footy.
I always find it humorous that you could pick a side like West Coast who literally have 20 injuries and be picking apart players. Like, I almost think it's a free pass. Maybe I'm being too pro player here.
Yeah, no, I mentioned this on 6PR with Jacko on the weekend and referred to you saying, do they get a bit of a leave pass this year? Yeah, anyway, that probably is a discussion that could go in all sorts of directions. But bottom line is, after half time, if we're going to try and work on the negatives and the positives, they were better. They outscored Geelong. Now, whether that was in part because Geelong led by 10.5 goals and thought, well, just cruise to victory here. But I think you've also got to give credit to the Eagles and what they did, because they could have easily turned it up. And
I would say more likely than not that was going to be a complete blowout, and it wasn't. So it's sort of like one of those games you look at and you're like, oh, well, again, it's like the Freo game, like over 40-plus point defeat, which is a bad defeat, but there was positives, the way they played. Like, are they like are they a challenger with all their players
they
on the
just
field?
don't have. You go them player for player. When it comes to adding up talent, Geelong and West Coast on the weekend, it's no surprise they just didn't have the stock out there.
Elliot Yeo is injured with something with it. We don't know exactly what it is, but Adam Simpson made the comment that he couldn't come back on, so that's not a corky.
He's out this week.
Yeah, so I don't know what that is yet. Jake Waterman was really good, I thought, for West Coast.
I think he's had his best year.
Absolutely, he has. He missed the first game, wasn't picked, and then he's played every game since.
And he's playing forward. He kicked 4 on the weekend. He's going into the ruck. I actually think that helped. That though it's a bit disruptive as a forward, but he gets him in the game, gets him involved, and he's competing. And I'm really happy for him, because that role that he's been playing while Josh Kennedy's there has been really difficult. I mean, not just getting a spot in that forward line has been tough for him to cement down. So I'm really happy that he's been able to have some success.
Oscar Allen kicks another 4 goals. He's been outstanding.
14 for the year.
I feel like that could have been one prediction I got right at the start of this year. Oscar Allen having an absolute ball terror.
Yeah.
Like, what he's doing in a side that's shithouse is very, very good.
And not just good, it's coming off 12 months with no footy. It's like someone having a knee recall or whatever it is, and coming back and playing as a key forward. And, I know
people forgot how good he was, and we're seeing how good he is.
Yeah, look, Josh Kennedy's always in the back of your mind as to, the elite as a forward, along with Peter Sumich, the Eagles, going back in time. But the Oscar's got, gee whiz, I mean, at this rate, what are we looking at? He's 40-plus goals.
Yeah. I reckon he's kicking 50-plus, and he's having a very, very big year. That's a huge year in a side that's not going to win many games of footy this year. Mark Reddings, Will Schofield, Shelter FootyCast. Let's do a quick whip around the rest of the game, Skeeter. We both picked Geelong in the last.
Yes.
Adelaide defeat Carlton.
Yeah, no, that was your roughie of the weekend when they started slight underdogs.
I think I picked 3 roughies in fairness.
You probably did. Probably did. 8-goal first quarter, in a nutshell, was enough to really put Carlton on the back foot. A guy called Jordan Dawson. Now, he's come from Sydney, didn't get a run in the midfield. Suddenly, he's probably got a bunch of Brownlow votes in his back pocket. He was outstanding.
Well, in serious, so this game, I watched the first 5 minutes. I was watching it with a couple of mates, and I said Adelaide won this, like, all over. That was before they'd kicked 8 goals. Just the way they were moving, like they clearly understood like how much that game meant for Adelaide. Like they'd built that up to
an occasion.
Yeah, and they had the new jumpers on, blah blah blah. But Jordan Dawson, I mean, you're exactly right. I think it's quite extraordinary to come into a footy club and in your second year,
captain.
You're named as captain. Like, in all my time, players that have come to the footy club, no matter how good leaders they are, like Josh Kennedy, like being one of them, and Jack Redden was a guy that came across. Elliot Yeo came across. These guys they're good leaders. No one has even come close to me going, geez, they could captain the footy club in their second year. There's still Tim Kelly, another one, and I don't think we've ever seen that. It's just incredible. He's young as well. He's not like this experienced Paddy Dangerfield that's come over or a Gary Ablett to Gold Coast. He's this sort of mid-20s guy that just played outstanding footy in that game, led back to his best. They had 37 and 32 touches respectively, and I don't know. Adelaide have certainly. They've surprised me at how good they've looked. I definitely had a good opinion of them having seen them played here in the pre-season, and I had a better opinion of them than Port Adelaide. But the way they're going about it,
They're in the top 8 as we speak.
perhaps are they in the top? They're not in top. No.
I'm pretty
People
sure
are speaking about them in top 4. Rochelle and Rankin, that sort of combo
They're 7.
works as well. Fogarty kicks 5.
I tell you what, the area that I'm pleasantly surprised with, their unheralded defence, and this is in your area. Guys like Murray,
Yep.
Is it Butts, Michael Annie?
Yep.
These guys are going,
Day.
who are these blokes? I'm going, they walk down past me in Beaufort Street, you wouldn't give them a second look unless
They look back at you. Or?
Probably not. But no, Crows, I picked them against Richmond. I have actually.
You like them, you just haven't liked them enough to pick them.
No, but I picked them on the weekend. I think.
Did you pick Adelaide as well?
Yeah, I picked Adelaide. Yes, I did. Paddy Cripps below his best. Blues. I've never won at the Adelaide Oval.
Ever.
And that's never. So that was part of my tipping philosophy. But I don't think you can just put the Blues defeat down as that's.
They didn't look great. They didn't look great.
I think I'm putting that down as a little blip on the radar.
Okay, very good. We'll keep moving. Sydney defeat Richmond by 44 points. I picked Sydney.
Both picked Sydney.
They're
gone, Richmond.
Yeah, gone.
Well, again, I had them as my slider at the start of the year. I just think they're getting a year older, and I think some were seduced by Taranto, Hopper coming into the mix, Dusty having a full pre-season. Mate, they've been to the buffet 3 times, a lot of these blokes.
Well, and they've got no Lynch. Nankervis didn't play on the weekend.
Nankervis didn't play. Lynch is obviously longish term. Nankervis out. No, they've got a lot of injuries.
Well, I mean, so what's that recruiting strategy then? I mean, they've given away draft picks to get in Taranto and Hopper. They haven't just walked in for free.
Yeah,
so they clearly think that they're a chance of rebuilding on the back of the squad they've got right now.
Probably looking at what Geelong's done, I guess, in many ways. And we've talked about the Eagles, the criticism after 18 with them. Well, mind you, they won 3, Richmond, so they're entitled to do what they want.
Is Papley one of the best players in the game?
He's the most exciting player to watch in the game almost.
6 goals, 25 disposals. That's a huge game.
He just buzzes, doesn't he? He could have been at Carlton, didn't he? He tried to get to Carlton a couple of years ago.
That's right, he did too.
Yeah, so, no, he's, think of small forwards. I mean, Isaac Rankin started this year really well, but Tommy Papley's been doing it for a long time. Sydney, still question mark for me, but again, I say this with all due respect, Buddy, not out there. I think that
you want Buddy. Do you want
no,
Buddy
I don't.
delisted?
No, I don't want to do
this. This is what it sounds like.
But he's not kicking 50 this year, unless you're proven correct.
Well, I know that's true, but there's a lot of things I've said that aren't happening. Sydney look like, I 100% agree, they look like a more balanced team. Papley kicked 6, okay, but Heaney 2, Amadi 2, who did his hammy. He's looked really good when he comes into the team, so they'll miss him a bit. But Campbell kicks 1, Warner, both Warners, one of them on debut. Rowbottom, Stevens, Mills, McInerney, McDonald, like they've got a spread. And
I just on the Warner factor, I commentated the other brother for Colts playing for East Fremantle on Saturday morning.
It's always the so there's Corey Chad who played for Sydney.
Yes,
and then the one in Waffle.
Can't remember.
His last name's definitely Warner though.
And if there's ever a movie made, it'll be made by Warner Brothers.
Okay, thank you, Scared.
I pinched it off BT.
You didn't even cover that with yourself. They say it all the time. The youngest brother, he's better than the other.
Yeah, exactly.
So like Scott Selwood was always the one. It's like Scott's better than Joel. It's like, well, I mean, Scott's a good player, but Joel's played like 4,000 games and won about 10 premierships.
Yeah, it's like the War brothers. Steve, or I think Mark's the youngest twin.
Yes.
But yeah. Anyway, he was pretty good as well.
Okay, Sydney, good. Brisbane defeat North Melbourne by 75. Blew right out this one.
Yeah.
This is what we expected from North Melbourne, though, to be honest.
It's what we expected from Brisbane a bit as well. But the defence of North and the ability for Brisbane to get out the back was quite alarming, and it was a soft kill.
The disposal, so I watched a fair bit of this game, had a few fantasy players playing. That it was some of the worst kicking I've seen by an AFL side in a long time. Their disposal was horrid, North Melbourne, and whether I don't know, it was windy. Was this Mount Barker?
Barker.
I don't know. Brisbane's skills were fine. So when you tend to see poor disposal, it's like, well, was it the weather or was it the conditions? But Brisbane was fine.
Yeah,
North Melbourne was horrid.
What are they kicking there? So you've got 5 from the likes of Danaher, 4 to Cameron, 4 to Hipwood. Yep. So there's 13 goals off the bat. They kicked 22, so 42 scoring shots. That's sort of what we think Brisbane should be doing on a regular basis to teams down the bottom of the table.
Ashcroft v. Sheasel, there was the battle of the rising stars. Ashcroft don't know how many exact touches he had, but he had a good game. He was in my Supercoach side, so I know he had a pretty good game. Sheasel had 31 disposals again. Most disposals of any debutant in the first 5 games ever.
So if you're stopping the count now for the Rising Star, I know you're a fan of Ruben, but he's
big fan of the boy.
He's a couple
Ruben.
lengths off the lead as we speak.
Well, he got subbed out on the weekend, so that didn't help him. He got poked in the eye and kicked in the face.
First goal in career in footy AFL level for him as well.
Does that kick in the face to Dangerfield, does that go to the tribunal today?
I looked at that. I know Dan on social media just inciting some interest. He just put it out there about and of course I read through some of the comments. Some of them saying, Dan, you're a loser, and Dan, you... but some of them was...
Skeeter's got his burner account out again.
Dan did receive some reply, and some referred to Toby Green. If that was Toby...
they had the still shots that look exactly the same. Yeah. So I don't know what the difference is. But anyway, we probably got a little bit off topic. Look, I'd have Sheasel. I mean, I know he's getting some cheap kick-in touches, but I don't know. Anyone can do that. So and no one else is doing that. So it's all good. Happy with that.
Brisbane, easy win.
Very good. We both picked Brisbane. Essendon defeat Melbourne. I picked Essendon, would you believe?
Did you really?
That was my second roughie of the week.
Second roughie. Oh, you fool.
It was. So Essendon defeat Melbourne, and they were very, very good.
Didn't see it because I was calling Waffle, so you're going to have to guide me through this. But Melbourne, I know they weren't great against the Eagles, but given neither of us really rate Essendon, how did this happen?
Basically, another one of the only things I've said that came true this year. Pre-game, I said what I saw from West Coast in the first half. Remember when we called that game, I kept calling up the chimney? Melbourne were getting put under elite pressure by West Coast at stages of that game, and they couldn't sustain it, and they got smashed in the end. But Essendon bought consistent four-quarter pressure.
Which they haven't done for years.
Anytime Melbourne got the footy, they were under pressure. And they got their midfield game going a little bit, and Petrarca and Oliver, they're stars. So at times they looked good. But overall, the two big ruckmen, Draper and Phillips, they had 3 goals in the first quarter between them. They played on Grundy. They dominated him. They took him completely out of the game. Merritt and Parrish were outstanding in their midfield. They were clean. They were hard. They were good. The Essendon were very good.
But the MRI is going to have a say, I believe.
So Merritt's been given a week for a dangerous tackle. Look, it's very easy to see where this is going. AFL's trying to get this out of the game, and you basically, going to ground with a tackle, you need to be showing best endeavours at the very least to protect the head, which is a good thing in principle.
But mate, just quickly,
brings us hard in the grey areas.
And I know we go back to the Eagles Geelong game. 2 cases. Stenger, when he injured his wrist on a tackle, was given a free kick, and also I think Jimby was dumped. Might have been by Stanley. I looked at both of them, and I struggle to see how players are getting. I know that the head. How do you tackle a player to ground? I'm curious. And
look. It's going to be. There's going to be this grey period before they actually come out and clarify what's going on, like whether or not
they weren't sling tackles. So
no, it's really. Look, I'm not going to sit here and argue against it because I do want the head protected. There is incidents in our game and moments in our game that are difficult to adjudicate against, and so look, we're going to lose Merritt. We're going to lose Tom Green. Did a similar action that was more slinging in nature. I think he's in trouble. Look, we're going to have to cop it. I think. I don't know. It was a really interesting one in this game. Ben Brown, who was out the week before, got brought into the team, into the 22, and then was a late out of the entire squad, not injured. Well, actually, who knows what he was. And they brought Melksham into the side, and Melksham all the way Brown all the way out. Like, I'm going to keep banging on about it. The moment we get some clarity and some actual honesty about which players are injured, what's wrong with them, who's playing in the team, it's a bit of a farce. It's a farce from not only coaches but the clubs. They're taking the piss, and it's it affects different things than just them holding some strategy against the other side. Like, it's affecting results. It's affecting betting. It's affecting fantasy footy. It's affecting sponsorship. It's affecting the fans going to games. We need real clarity, and we don't have it. And that's another example.
How much does a late change, and Chris Scott obviously is
nothing.
How much advantage does it give a team?
None. Genuinely none. I played in some games where I'd prepped all week to play on, say, John DeGoey, right? And he gets pulled out, and there's a bit of happiness. Like there's a little bit of they'll come in and I'm trying to. There was one specifically where I was doing a job on a bloke, and 30 minutes before the bounce, said, the team manager comes up and said, Adam Goods isn't playing. They've just pulled him out. And so your instant feeling is relief. You're like, oh. But then
what's your role?
But then you've prepped the whole week, but literally within 5 minutes, you're just going back into whatever other structure you're playing. It affects nothing. Like, it's too late. It's actually too late. So, I don't know. I don't think it affects anything. I think we need to get some real clarity. Hey, Dan Const, if you could check your phone, that'd be great. Thank you very much.
By the way, the Bombers, can you believe this? The Bombers are currently second on the AFL table.
Oh, wowee. What's the top 4?
So, St Kilda, Essendon, Collingwood, all on 16. Carlton with 14 next to their name. So, some big clubs in Melbourne, which I think's great.
Makes for a big Anzac Day. Gee, that's going to be massive. Port Adelaide defeat Western Bulldogs by 14 points. I picked the Bulldogs.
I ticked Port. I wish they'd won by 15 for obvious reasons. But and Todd Marshall, I was sort of hoping they'd get across the line, but not by that much. Todd Marshall in the last quarter, just goal-kicking-wise, on a tough night for footy, he was just outstanding. And Jason Horne-Francis, we can go all around the subjects here, but still getting booed, still getting carved up by supporters.
Why? What's the reason?
Because he moved, and
what were they booing him for?
Oh, Kane Corns and the ice bath story, and the fact he's gone back to Adelaide, he's copying grief. He was a number 1 draft pick. If this was rugby league or any other football code, no one would give a flying. But because our game is so built on tradition and one club players over the journey, which is now changing, of course.
But the narrative has been pushed by Kane and others around, like, why he left and how he left, and now the media is to blame.
Yeah, most likely, absolutely.
Like you don't put it into lights and to.
I got no problem with Ken Hinkley did, by the way. I liked him after the game. I thought there was, it was public, but he felt he wanted to go up and give the young bloke a chat, and then he defended him and went out to bat for him in the post-match press conference, which I think is great leadership.
Darcy Byrne-Jones got moved forward, kicked a couple of goals. Like, I tweeted about this last week. I find it really strange. He won the best and fairest in 2020 as a halfback flank. Was All-Australian, was an absolute gun. The last couple of years, he's been in and out of the team. I'm not sure what's gone on there, but that's just a bit strange for mine.
Love the work Butters and Rosie. We know their ability in a wet night at the Adelaide Oval, always tricky. And Cody Waitman, his 4 goals, really important. You have the tools around him, and Aaron Norton and the like. Jamara Ugle-Hagan. But, Dogs were disappointing the last quarter. They led by, I think, 8 points or thereabouts after kicking, I think, the first of the last, but then they just dried up, and that's a tough loss for them to swallow.
GWS defeat Hawthorn by 2. I tell you what.
I saw the end of this game.
Yeah, so did I. I don't know why. I ended up flicking onto it.
Me too.
Probably, so it was Jarman Impey with seconds to go, has a shot.
Yeah, but let's reverse the truck and fraction.
Sorry.
Big Harry Himmelberg.
Yeah, that was great.
I mean, to go up and take the mark of the round and, contender for mark of the year, like Disco Roach back in the old days.
Roach.
Then kicked the goal.
Papa Roach, hey?
To put them ahead, and they'd been peppering. So he puts them in front. Last 30 seconds of the game, as you say, Hawks get it through the middle, get it into the hands of Impey, who's, I think, just on the 50, maybe a fraction outside that or around the arc.
It looked in the whole way.
He kicked it beautifully.
Yeah.
And then Himmelberg had made his way into defence.
Was that Himmelberg?
It was Himmelberg.
No, it wasn't.
It was Himmelberg. Yep. So
he almost butchered it. He almost missed it. Because where he was jumping from, he jumped from well inside, and he had to do the big bend back.
It was like the Arsenal goalkeeper. He had to give the full. But the review came into play. The tension is immense.
I'd say the Arsenal goalkeeper didn't do too well on the.
Well, they were 2-0 up against West Ham last night, and they gave held to a 2-2 draw.
Well, shout out to the Arsenal fans out there. So touched it, went to the arc.
Yes.
But the umpire called it touched.
Yeah, and that helped. But also, I think the replay did show it sort of slipped past. That's a big win for the Giants. So Adam Kingsley, he's only had 2 victories next to his name. Both have come, I think, by a combined total of about 6 or 7 points. It's been pretty nerve-wracking stuff. But Hawks, bless you.
Bless you, Dan.
Hawks
Shut the fuck up.
Couldn't hang on.
We're recording a podcast over here.
Giants get the result.
Collingwood defeats St Kilda by 6. Very good game here. This was the game of the round.
Yep.
St Kilda, Collingwood. It was defensive. It was a bit more defensive than I thought it would be, but that's Ross Lyon, right?
It was, but you were very keen to see what Ross did with Nick Dacos.
Absolutely sweet F all.
He's got 42.
Career high.
Repeat that. 4-2 next to his name, and Scully's going, when is somebody going to tag this bloke?
Why are we not tagging him? Like, why? What's the reason?
Can they? Are they? Will they?
I don't. Well,
Is he
there's no
taggable?
player that's untaggable. Just commit yourself to running around a bloke. It's honestly not that hard. I've tagged blokes. It's genuinely like a pretty easy thing to do.
You and Krause.
You just need to be versatile, fit in with your team structures around stoppage, and just don't worry about yourself and just worry about him. No one's doing that, which is outrageous. They've won again. He's had 42 touches. No Degoe, he was a laid out. That's another thing. You just Degoe's not playing.
He was ill.
Right, okay, well, that's supposedly. We won't really know, do we? I guess we're just going to take everyone's word that, we just pull him out. Josh Dacos was very good. The elder brother of Nick, so it's actually reversed here. Josh Dacos is having a really good season, but I think everyone just thinks Nick is as well. St Kilda almost won this. They were 4 goals down with 2 minutes to go, and they almost won.
Absolutely. They flew home, and they had the ball inside 50 when the siren sounded. So, look, I don't think St Kilda loses any fans whatsoever. They've restricted Collingwood to 70 points, which I think they would have taken pre-game as about a low-scoring affair.
Yep.
They just let themselves down at the start of that last quarter, and Collingwood, Bobby Hill at the goal line got a cheap in. That was a hard-fought win, and I think we need to give St Kilda the credit they deserve for the first month of footy. And look, once they get some players back, Ross Lyon, despite another really good coaching performance, just falling short. But Collingwood, as you say, sets it up beautifully for Anzac Day with that result, albeit it wasn't their finest performance by any means. But St Kilda don't let teams do that with the way they go about their footy.
That is correct. Will Schofield, Mark Redding's Shelter FootyCast. We've had some emails come in from our listeners, and we do appreciate that. So if you want to send us an email, you can get in touch with us. Make sure you do, because we will get into these as well. FootyCast@shelterbrewing.com.au. Send us an email and we'll get through them. This one's from James Russell. Thanks for your correspondence, James. Hi, Will and Skeet. Wondering what your thoughts were regarding Dangerfield's actions during West Coast game yesterday. There were the 2 marking contests in which he raised his leg in a flying kicking motion, which both made contact with the opposition player. Then later in the game, he made contact with Jinby again, which we spoke about. To this point, there has been no mention from the MRO. So I feel that if this was Toby Green, he would be hearing a lot more about these incidents, especially considering they all happened in the same game.
Yeah, I can't really dispute what he's saying, but Danger took the mark when he was opposed to Jimby in that contest. Will they have a look at it? Yeah, possibly. But
I mean, there's a rule there, studs up rule.
Yeah,
so
it can't just happen.
I guess there's got to be enough force.
He played on, didn't he?
Kick someone in the head.
Well, did he? How does protection? Yeah, I suppose it's the force of which the leg's going out.
They're trying to stop people using their studs to protect themselves. So that's what he did. Maybe a fine. I don't know. It didn't look like the worst incident in the world.
No, I wouldn't. I'm not about to go to war over it.
Matthew Stenhouse gets in touch. Thanks, Matty. Caught the end of a brief conversation with Skeet and Jacko on radio on 6PR, the development of West Coast. No disrespect, but West Coast don't seem to have any big names, and is that even required? Thought Jacko was spot on regarding his points on Melbourne 10 or so years ago, getting all the draft picks but playing them all too early, then most of them having shortened careers. They need quality development before throwing them in the deep end. West Coast have a big pot of money. Why don't they look to recruit proven and strong development staff and a footy manager? And has the Waffle side been a bad move in hindsight? For your information, I'm aware of where the club is at and will be good to have another strong draft, but needs to be managed well. Thoughts?
Yeah, I don't disagree with too much of that.
Were you listening?
Well, no, it was quite a long email. It's stretched. But essentially, talking about player development.
Right.
Now,
so
you know more about the player development coaches there.
Well, so you and Jacko are speaking about young draft picks and playing them too early. What happened at Melbourne?
Essentially, was talking about Barnett at the Eagles, the young ruckman. Is it Harrison Barnett?
Yes.
Well, Jackson Barnett. Yeah, Harrison. So he's first came in. And our co-commentator, Mitch, said, Paps actually said, he might have to come in. And I said, well, after one game, and Jacko's very strong, saying, no, you cannot bring these types of players in too early. And that's when he went down the path of saying it can be detrimental to their development by playing AFL footy when they're clearly not ready. And that's when he went down the Melbourne path.
Well, so I think Matty's second point about should they they've got a big pot of money. Should they be recruiting a proven and strong development staff and footy manager and the Waffle? So I think they should. Yeah, I think Matty's spot on. I think they should be, if they're gonna persist with it, they're gonna have to put more money into it. I don't know if they can. That's the only thing.
You talking about the footy cap?
With the Waffle side, I think it includes what they're doing at the AFL, like with the Waffle side. So. Yeah. I don't know if they can go and spend all the money that they've got because they do have money.
There's 40
West Coast
plus million
money.
in the bank. The money isn't an issue.
I don't think they're allowed.
I
to
don't
spend
think they can. I mean, they're probably hamstrung a bit, and that's where the bigger clubs, and they are certainly one of them, are saying, look, the salary, the soft cap, detrimental to improving the coaching staff, or certainly the resources that they can certainly afford. Yes.
Thank you very correspondence, lads. If you want to get in touch with us, send us an email, footycast@shelterbrewing.com.au. Shelter XPA X Factor of the round, Skeeter. I've got one in front of me.
We're going Fremantle, I'm guessing.
Either Free or West Coast, and it's not West Coast.
No, we're going Fremantle. I reckon I always like to give it the old boys because I've got that sort of affiliation with old boys now. I can't see what you've got written down, so I'm going to have to agree or disagree.
I've got Caleb Sarong, but I think I'm flipping. Mickey Walters gets the Shelter of XPA thanks to Shelter for his 4-goal performance. I don't care if he's old. He's one of their best players. He should be kicking goals, and that's what he's doing. So I've heard a couple of people say, it's, what's it say about Freo's list if Michael Walters is playing well? It's like, well, what's he meant to be doing? Not playing well.
If he's not playing well, that's poor. And guess what? There's some of these young small forwards or some of the forwards around him. He'll be getting them to take their notepad out and say, look, this is where we move to. He'd be giving some education to these kids as well.
Now, let's not finish the show without our new segment, Thirsty Camel Clanger of the Week. Don't run out of your favourites. Grab your shelters at Thirsty Camel. Now, Skeeter, have you got a clanger of the week for us, other than your punt in the Port Adelaide game? Have you got a clanger of the week for us? Because I've got to be honest, I don't have one sitting in front of me.
Oh, good on you, champ.
Yeah.
Leaving me highly exposed to embarrassment here. Clanger of the week. Let me think.
Who was doing silly things? I mean, Paddy Dangerfield was doing it. What about this one? I've got one.
There you go.
I'm just going to think who it's on. It was actually something I really liked. I've got it in my head. I'm just wondering who the clanger is against, right? I think it's going to be against Jack Ginnivan. Now, there was a moment in the St Kilda Collingwood game yesterday. Jack Ginnivan fell over. He was being tightly manned by Ben Patton from St Kilda all game. He kept him to 1 goal. He played well on him. In the third quarter, Ginnivan's gone down in a contest. Ben Patton first to his feet and was about a metre away from him, and Jack Ginnivan lying on his back put his hand up for a hand up. Help me up, Ben.
Yes.
Ben looked at him.
Donuts.
Hands on his knees, just stared him down and waited till Collingwood teammates came and picked him up. I bloody love that from Patton.
Yeah.
And that is the Thirsty Camel Clanger of the Week on Jack Ginnivan. Mate, get yourself up. Don't be asking the opposition players to pick you up.
Nah, good call. Now, I'm going to finish with one as well. Okay. Nothing to do with footy, but it's to do with me, actually, yesterday.
Let's finish this.
I had my Kia Osborne Park Sportage. The pressure set on the tyres was low. So I've been a couple of times to put air in there, and nothing's really changed. I was getting a bit frustrated, so I brought my wife to the service station.
Your wife?
Yeah, my wife. And because she does a lot more things better than I do. So we've gone through it, got the pressure valve up to 35, and she's done it. And because I was pressing the button in, I think I wasn't putting any air in the tyre, so she just said, just leave it there, and went up to 35. And so complete clanger, thanks to Thirsty Camel myself, for not even knowing how to put air in tyres of my car. My wife looked at me, and she turned seriously and said, Mark, you're a remedial. That was what she said to me in the nicest possible way.
Know your role and shut your mouth.
What a way to finish. Shelter FootyCast on Instagram. Follow us there. Send us an email. Catch up. Find Skeet in the street and tell him how to change a tyre or something.
Just put air in the tyres. You shouldn't say, well, she called me a muppet, to be honest with you.